Okay, folks, let's try that again. I had just come on to do a live mask making demo, and my presser foot just came off my machine, so I had to put it back on. But what we're going to be doing today is making some youth size masks with elastic loops around the ears. We already have a tutorial up for masks with a cloth tie on them, but we've had some requests for another tutorial for these ones that use elastic loops. We're running a project right now called the Merry Mask Makers. And basically you receive a kit, you sign up to volunteer your time, you make the masks in the kit, and then the masks get given away to anybody in our community who is in need of a mask. And with the recent regulations for masks being needed in all commercial establishments, we've had quite a few requests in the last couple of days for more masks. Which is great. We want everybody wearing them. So without further ado, here is a little tutorial. This, since it's a youth size, it's a little bit smaller. It's cut about 8 inches by 5 inches. There's 2 pieces of cotton fabric here, placed right sides together. And the first step is to stitch all the way down on both long sides. And we're going to chain a couple of pieces together. So I'm going to show you what that looks like as well, because we want to try to get a big batch of them done so we can do each step all at once. Your seam allowance is going to be about 3/8 of an inch. And you'll just start at the beginning and end of each of the long sides. It's not super necessary to backstitch at the beginning and end on these ones because you are going to be chaining them all together, and then those edges will get reinforced in the next step. So instead of cutting the threads and starting the next one, I'm just going to butt this one right up against where the other one is. Move my machine to this awkward angle so you can see, and just running right onto the next one. And you can keep chaining. I don't like to do more than maybe 10 in a chain because otherwise it just gets kind of cumbersome. But I'll just do 3. Just for funsies, you know. And then you want to go around and do this next side. So this one I'm going to have to trim down because this one piece was cut a little bit big. No big deal. And making sure you're lining up right at that edge. An awkward angle to sew at, but I want you to be able to see what I'm doing, so okay. And then before I flip these right side out, I'm actually going to trim the bulk out of the corners, and obviously I'm going to trim them apart as well. So I'm going to turn back around here. Hopefully see that, my cutting mat, pretty well. I'm going to turn my iron on. It's going to make an awkward clicky sound in the background. So I'll just cut these apart and cut the threads. One really nice thing about chaining the pieces together is you get a lot less wasted thread. When you're sewing each one individually, you're going to end up with that thread tail on the end of each piece, and that can waste quite a bit of thread. So this one here, I'm just trimming down these pieces because it was a little bit, the one piece was cut a little bit bigger. And then what I'm going to do is slice out these corners so that in the next step it's not so bulky. And these ones, I'm just going to show you one. So turn it right side out, and then you want to give it a press. I like to press it offset first, just because it opens up that seam and it makes it really nice and flat. And then I go in and I press with the edges flush. Just quick. And grab some elastic. These ones, because it's a youth size, you only need to make the elastic about 6 inches. And when I say youth, I mean about like ages 8 to 12, but it all depends on your head size. So obviously, if you have an adult size head, get an adult size mask. The elastic is stretchy, so if your head's a little bigger, it has a little bit of give. But you don't want one that's too big or like way too small. So what I've done here is I've just turned under this edge about 3/8 of an inch. So a little more than 1/4 inch, but not quite half. Turn that under and press. And then do the same thing on this side. Turn it under. Sorry, I keep taking it out of frame. Turn it under. It can be a little bit tricky or a little bit bulky sometimes. So you do want to get it really, really nice and flat. But the nice thing is, now I'm going to pin the elastic in. And if I were doing a whole chain of them again, I'd pin the elastic in and then just sew, backstitch all the way down. And I'm not having to pivot around any corners. And I'm also not having to stop and start each circle. So again, saving a lot of thread. So you want to pin your elastic in about 1/2 inch, so just past the fold, or just past the very edge of the inside. So it's about a thumbnail on me, but it's about 1/2 inch, I think, on other people with larger thumbs. You want the elastic nice and flat. You don't want it twisted or curved at all as it's going in. You'll be able to feel that it's gone all the way to that inner line. And it's good to pin or clip it. And then same on this side. And then we're ready to sew this in a straight stitch. And back over here. This one, you do want your seam allowance a little bit closer to the edge. So I'm going to move my needle position over so that there's only about 1/4 inch between where the thread line, the stitching line is going to be, and the edge of my fabric. And this one you do want to backstitch at the beginning and end, just so that it's extra secure. And again, if you're chaining pieces, you can keep going into the next piece. But for this, I just want to be able to show you quickly on one. Otherwise, I think we'd run over the 1 hour limit of live and IGTVs. And so right here, it's experiencing some trouble going over the elastic. So I'm just sort of helping the needle get over, and then I'm gonna backstitch. You don't want to force your machine to try and get over a hump or something, because that could stress out the needle and the needle might break, or you might risk throwing off the timing. Another back stitch and clip those threads. And head back down here to put the pleats in. I've immediately lost my scissors. Everything just gets totally lost on my little ironing mat. And so because this one is youth size, it's a little bit smaller. And instead of putting in the 3 pleats, we're only going to put in 2. Can you see that? Yeah. There you go. Give it just a quick little iron. So you want to start the pleat, the first pleat about an inch, 1.25 inches down, and then go pull that piece down about 1/4 inch so that it's overlapping. And that's going to give you a really nice and deep pleat that will allow the mask to become a little bit 3-dimensional and really easily sit over the face. Press your pleat into place, and then right below that first pleat, pulling down. So you're kind of pinching about a 1/4 inch piece and then pulling it down. And that's going to give you that really nice flat pleat. And I really suggest ironing your pleats into place as you're working, because it does help quite a bit to give the sides of the mask a nice flat appearance, and then give the pleats sort of a chance to set. And then you do want to just pin those pleats into place as well. And then always remove your pins as you're sewing. And there's going to be 2 parts on this next step. First, you want to secure these pleats with a straight stitch, and then we're going to overcast this whole edge with a zigzag, and that's going to make everything really, really secure. And it's really going to last well. Because you want these masks to be durable. We might be wearing them for the next several months. So over top of that first stitch line, I'm going to stitch it again. And I don't recommend trying to skip the first step of stitching the 2 layers together after you've flipped it. I tried that on one, and it was so like floppy that it was harder to keep track of the layers. And I ended up just having to do it again. So it didn't really save me any time. And again, you want to just be mindful of going over that elastic, because it can be kind of tough to get through. I have a size 14 needle, which is a denim needle. I wouldn't recommend trying to use any smaller of a needle size. And I'm also going to show you one little extra thing that you can do, which is to backstitch a little bit here and create a channel where you can put in a nose wire if that's something that you need. And then I'm able to just continue on the other side here. Again, taking out your pins as you go, being careful moving over your pleats. You don't want to push it, but you do want to make sure that it's going through nice and evenly. And then I'm going to backstitch, and it's almost done. All that's left is to set it to a zigzag. I like to use the 3-step zigzag because I find that it's just a little bit more secure. The more the needle is moving through the fabric, the more sort of strength that thread's going to have. So then that zigzag line, just making sure you can see, is going to go right over that edge. Starting the left position of the needle is going to go right down that first stitching line, and then the right position of the needle is going to go right off the edge of the fabric. So mine starts in the right position. So I'm going to bring my needle down and then tack it in place, keeping my threads out of the way. I like to give it 2 kind of back stitches or tacking stitches, and then just gently ease it along. And backstitch or tack at the end. Cut that thread and do the second side. Making sure your needle is in the right position. Giving your little back stitch. Needle needs to move over just a little bit more. And easing it carefully over the elastic. And backstitching. And that mask is done. So all you need to do is clip your loose threads, and it's ready to go. Lots of loose threads. So flip around here. So that is another quick, easy way of making a cloth mask. This one has an option for a nose wire, which I'm going to show you the best way to put one of those in, because obviously it's not in here now. You don't want to cut through any of your seams or your stitch lines, but you can cut a small hole into the fabric itself, as long as it's not near any of your seams or stitch lines. And then you can just insert a wire. You can use a twist tie, you can use like a coated jewelry wire. And then the nice thing about that is you can take it out for washing. I made some that I made permanent nose wires in, and after about 6 or 7 washes, I could feel the wire kind of starting to wear, and I'm gonna have to open it up to take it out. So this one, if you're making an adult size, you'll want to cut your pieces about 6 inches by 9 inches, but all the other steps are the same. Your elastic loops will be about 1 inch bigger at 7 to 7.5 inches, and you'll do 3 pleats instead of 2. But all of the other steps are the exact same, and it's a super quick, easy way to make a reusable cloth mask, whether you're making them as part of the Merry Mask Makers project or you just need one to make on your own. So thanks. See you later.